Operation Truth. The show they don't want you to see. Now, here's your host, Lou.
Hi, everyone. This is Lou Palumbo. Welcome to Operation Truth. My colleague and my co-host, Tom Fuentes, is a little delayed. I won't get into why. Not really relevant, but he's going to probably join us in a short bit. I wanted to talk to you about a myriad of topics, and please indulge me because I bounce, there's no secret. But the interesting part of this conversation is they all intersect with the future of our children, the young people here, of which I am no longer one of. The bottom line is we better start doing business a little differently than we're doing it. Otherwise, we're not going to have a future for our children. And I wish people would put the interests of their children ahead of their political views. This today is about policies. I'm not telling you who to vote for. I wouldn't presume that I had the right to do that. But I will tell you, look at the condition of the country in the past 3.5 years. The criminal element acts with impunity in your major cities, rampant across this country. Your foreign policies, the withdrawal from Afghanistan. Just listen to what the State Department said, independent of what my opinion might be or anyone else's opinion. It speaks for itself. Take a look at these two proxy wars. This Ukraine's become a money pit. We're up to $174 billion and counting. Recently, it was disclosed that NATO is going to give them another $42 billion. I'm curious to know what percentage of that $42 billion is ours. Now we're learning that we're sending F-16s there. This is escalating, just so in case everybody doesn't get the memo on this. When Tom joins us, we're going to bump back into this whole Ukraine discussion on a different level. But you have to look at the course this country's on and the need for correction. Blah, blah, blah. It's not that hard to say that, cross correction. When you talk about the borders, so you're aware of what this bill is that the Republicans won't sign on to, that the Democrats keep making you believe they're posing this obstacle. Contained therein is allowing 2,500 migrants to cross into this country illegally a day. That comes to 1.8 million a year. There are 52 border crossings into this country. Texas has 31. San Ysidro, California is the busiest. By the way, California happens to be a sanctuary state. So when you cross that border, you're in. Guys, this is your country. Here's the biggest fly in the ointment. So we're clear, and this is irrefutable. And I challenge anyone in politics, regardless of their political affiliation, to challenge me. We do not vet them. We try to. If they're not already established on a watch list or a terrorist list, created by our intelligence community, the FBI, or Secret Service, we don't know who they are. Let me break it down for you. There are no databases in foreign countries like there are here. For example, if I take your date of birth, I get your address, your full name, I can pretty much run you in the United States and develop a background check. Criminal, DMV, financial. Without even your social security number. I can get that too, by the way. Foreign countries don't have these databases. They also don't share this information. You have to stop being misled by this intentional misleading by a political mechanism here. This is not healthy for your country or your children's future. This isn't about having an immigration policy. We need migrants to come into the country. That's a simple fact, but we need to know who they are. We need to know where they're going. We need to help assimilate them. We need to put them on a path to citizenship at some point in time in their life. You're not hearing this in a conversation because this is blow the borders open wide, which is why you probably have on the light side 15 million plus illegal migrants in this country. Let me tell you something interesting about what you're hearing in case you're confused. They acknowledge about 8 million border encounters at the southern border, about 2 million gotaways. Those are people that are detected through, say, thermal imaging, drones, or cameras. You with me? So we're detecting them. There's no encounter, but we see them penetrating the country's borders. They also fail to inform you of the unmonitored sectors of our border, which exist. That means there's no technology picking up gotaways, and there's certainly no encounters. Let's talk about the northern border now, if you don't mind. Maine and Vermont, heavy influx of people coming into the country illegally. They're starting to bump into their own problems there, and it's filtering into Boston. They're starting to take resources, money, and accommodation away from the minority community to accommodate the illegals. This is a fact. Denver, the same thing. Guys, this is your country. I don't want to get into a political dissertation about individuals because, like, I know people hate Donald Trump. I got the memo on this guy. You know, I wish I could just climb in his brain and tell him, stop talking, stop insulting people, stop demeaning people, stop branding and labeling people. It's beneath us to do that, period. Stay on point. Talk about the topics at hand. Talk about policies at hand. I don't care if it's Kamala Harris. I don't care if it's Joe Biden. I don't care if it's Schiff, Nadler, anybody that promotes this open border policy nonsense. You lost your mind because it's already failing. It's economically straining cities like New York, where the mayor openly admitted in an interview that it's going to destroy the city of New York, which happens to be my home. We don't have enough accommodations. They're sleeping on sidewalks. Guys, pay attention. Put your political lens down and your personal disdain for Donald Trump or your personal disdain for Kamala Harris and just look at the facts. And anybody that has the chops, please get on this podcast or communicate with me and tell me you want to argue this point with me. This is not about politics to me. This is about your safety. At the rate we're going, you're not going to have a country to worry about. Do you have pro-choice or the First Amendment or the Second Amendment? You'll have cessation of your rights, or we'll be living under different governing. Pay attention to what's going on in your country. I listen to the rhetoric in this country. It's alarming. And I'm not even going to bump into the media, which are leading the charge. Guys, you have to follow the truth. You know, I was just talking to you about the border crossings. I did a little research. 52 legal land crossings, 43 roadways, 8 rails, 1 ferry. There are 24 bridges and 2 dams. Texas alone has 31 border crossings. So when you start talking about this border bill and allowing 2,500 people a day to come in, how exactly does that work? What do? Stand at a counter at each one and communicate with radios? I got 10. How many you have it? You're 31 or you're 50? I mean, do they think that little of us intelligence-wise that they throw this crap against the wall to see if it'll stick? And I'm going to answer the question for you. They do. They think that little of us. These people that are running the country today are not watching out for you and I. I'm suspect of both of these political entities. I don't know where to tell you to go with this conversation except put down your political lens, all your hate in your heart. Listen, I got the memo on Trump. He said things that are completely inappropriate. I got it. But if you look at the condition of this country 3 years ago, other than this lie you're living today, it speaks for itself. This economy that they keep telling you is rebounding, who's it rebounding for? I talk to people day in and day out, part of the purpose of which is to determine or identify the level of impact on their lives. When your rent goes up 28%, your electric bill goes up over 25%, your water bill goes up over 25%, your insurance on your car and your home goes up a percentage, your interest rates are through the roof, they're back up 7% plus. Where is the relief here, folks? How do they have the audacity to stand there, look you in the eyes and lie? And if these were Republicans doing it, I would say the same thing. I'm not married to any political entity. I'm an American. I'm a citizen of the United States, not a citizen of the Republican Party or a citizen of the Democrat Party. My children are U.S. citizens, not Democrat citizens, Republican citizens. Stay with me on this one, folks. You know, why you're all not offended more is beyond conception. When is enough here? We're looking at an election that's going to really carve out the future of this country. And as far as all the flip and the flopping and the lying, all you have to do is not listen to me, put your political lens down, and to listen to what's being said by one of the individuals running for president. That's all you have to do. I'll give you a hint. She's the vice president. It's irrefutable. You cannot arbitrate what she has said. I got the memo on Donald. He has no dignity. We didn't send him to finishing school. That's quite apparent, because if we had, he probably wouldn't speak to or about people in the manner in which he does. And I don't care what the president thinks about me. I hope he just doesn't retaliate based on my criticism and come after me, because that's the way people are. I just don't understand this darkness in our souls. And I want to talk about J.D. Vance for a moment. Jury's out with this young man, but I will tell you, he's already misspoken. He got into this whole thing about women that can't bear children. I do want to talk to you about this topic objectively and independently. If you're living in this society and you don't have children, I don't care which gender you are, you don't have skin in the game. I got married very late, ladies and gentlemen. I got married at 54 for the first time. I'm not a big proponent of matrimony. Just look at this institution in your country and the failure rate. I have 4 young children here. That's called skin in the game. J.D. Vance made a comment that he didn't think through. You know, I keep telling everybody, by the way, as I teach my children, words hurt. Think about what you're going to say before you say it, what it's going to sound like, what it's going to translate to. I got a response from Jennifer Aniston, who happened to have been my client. I ran the security on the whole set for Friends, and I handled Jennifer among other people. Nice girl. Offended by this comment, and rightfully so. Think about what you're saying here, folks. There are women, and I have them actually in my family, that cannot bear children. So it's not their choice. But I do say this to you objectively. When you don't bear the burden of worry about your children, you're having a whole different discussion. Guys, I skipped along for 54 years, happy as a lark, without a bump in the road. And I will tell you now, I'm in a whole different discussion.
Thank you for tuning in to Operation Truth. We are just taking a moment to remind you to go follow us at Operation Truth Official on TikTok. You can also find us at Operation Truth Official on Facebook and Instagram. Be a part of this conversation and join the operation.
As I was saying, Tom Fuentes just joined us. I know we were speaking about some border issues. We can go back to that in a moment. At some point, I'd like to get Chris Schwecker back on, who's another former assistant director. But we have Tom Fuentes, who's a former assistant director of the FBI with an incredible career, is the only way I can say it, about almost 30 years of service. And I direct this question to Tom because of his extensive background and his intimate knowledge of the FBI, the responsibility of the Department of Justice. So, Tom, we spoke about this off camera just in generality, but I think it's a very pertinent question I want to ask you to speak to. We are redundantly reminded by Christopher Wray that the southern border of the United States is a threat to our national security, and that fentanyl is flowing in epic proportions, killing tens of thousands of our citizens. So my question, Tom, if you would be so kind, does he have a duty to address this at this point? I mean, at what point does he stop reminding us, Tom, of this threat that we have people coming into this country that are on terrorist watch lists? We're intercepting them in the country right now prior to their perpetrating terrorist incidents. We've got a fentanyl problem. When does the Department of Justice, that's responsible for the safety of this nation as a whole, guys, understand the importance of the FBI. You know, police agencies have what we call geographical areas of employment. In New York City, it's the city of New York. In Chicago, it's the city of Chicago. City of Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Police Department. The FBI, it's your nation. So, Tom, I ask you this question. Is he going to keep reminding us about the threat to our national security, the fentanyl problem? At what point is it incumbent upon him to step up and go to this administration? Guys, you've got to do something here.
If he's testifying in an open hearing to Congress, which he has done when he's made these statements, that's mainly his job of generally the threat situation in the country. What's a threat to our security? What isn't? Unless there's a absolute specific information about an attack, then yes, it's his job to prevent it. It's his job to interfere with it or arrest the people that are involved, whatever it might be. But as of now, I think in a way he's done his job when he's alerted the public and the administration. That's his job. Let them know what the threat level is. What else? What would Tom, you rather have him do?
You see, that's the question, Tom. I hear what you're saying, and I understand that. He's fulfilled much of his obligation to inform the public and the administration. But when he sees the administration falter and continuously put the safety of this nation at risk, are his hands tied? I mean, at what point does he not say, guys, let's start to investigate the administration because obviously they are violating our border responsibility, right? The president's responsible to maintain the safety and the security of the nation. If the FBI identifies he's not doing that, why aren't we indicting him or something, Tom? You understand my question?
Well, the reason is Christopher Wray does not control the Department of Justice. Our esteemed Attorney General, Merrick Garland, does. You have not seen Merrick Garland go after any member of the administration in any way, shape, or form. with the exception maybe of Senator Menendez from New Jersey. He's been charged. But otherwise, all of the DOJ investigations are skewed toward going after Trump supporters, conservatives, all of that, and not go after specific things like this. We just haven't seen it. So Christopher Wray, he can't bring impeachment against the president. He can recommend it. He can cite what these issues are. Then it would be up to the House of Representatives to say, the president has not done his job. We're going to write articles of impeachment and take that over to the Senate, much like they did with Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas. The House draws up impeachment papers. They take it to the Senate, as the Constitution says they should. And then you have the leader of the Senate tear them up and say, no, we're not going to bother with that. Now, that's a constitutional issue not settled. Does he have the right to do that?
You know, Tom, and I really don't want to get too far into this conversation about January 6th, but if you're wondering why we have so many people in this country today, some of whom, in my opinion, mistakenly converged on the Capitol. In other words, if you converged on the Capitol with the intent to commit a crime, destruct property, destroy property, harm individuals, put people's safety at risk, you need to be prosecuted. That's not what happened there. We're not going to talk about that. But what I am talking about is that people converged to Washington, D.C. People are getting tired of the crazy here, folks. Oh, at least we hope they are. And you have an election coming up. And Tom, prior to you joining me in the podcast, I'm saying to people, I know a lot of people that are not going to vote for Donald Trump because he's got, bad people skills. He's got poor bedside manner. But I tell people, put down the political lens, separate who's running as individuals, and look at the policies steering this country. Look at the condition of this country over the past 3.5 years. Look at this economy, your foreign policies, your energy sector, the rampant crime in your major cities, the border. And Tom and I have spent a lifetime, both of us, over 50 years of our lives protecting people. Tom did it as a local police officer, and then he evolved into the FBI. That was actually my intent. I won't get into the history of my career, but I did a certain amount of years in law enforcement, and I've spent the rest of my life protecting people. I'm concerned about your safety, guys, not your pocketbook, to be honest with you, because if we're not careful, as I said earlier in this podcast, you're not going to have a country to worry about spending that money. But, you see my question, Tom. Now, I do want to ask you this question, Tom. I understand the laws surrounding treason. If you aid and abet the enemy, you comfort the enemy, kind of like Jane Fonda did, which went unaddressed, by the way, during Vietnam. Is there any element of that here, Tom? Is there potential for treason here? Because you know the ins and outs of this.
Okay. You have to aid and abet an enemy of the United States. Now, right now, we have not declared war on anybody or any terrorist group or any country. So what would be the elements of treason if you don't have that?
So let me give you a hypothetical. Are the drug cartels not an enemy of this country, Tom?
No, they're not declared enemy of the country. Declare war on the cartels if you want to make them such, but they're not.
And so
begs
the question, Tom.
Associates at the border of the United States, helping with people trafficking, drug trafficking, illegal immigration. Wonderful partners to have. That's the situation we have right now.
Now, I want you to listen to this next question I have for Tom, and it's about the border. Because if there's anybody that's aware of how to protect the country and what's going on at the border, you ready, guys? Tom, have we lost operational control of our border?
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Guys, listen, we have no agenda. Tom and I are not running for office. Trust me, it's the last thing either one of us are thinking about. We're not trying to tell you at this crossroad who to vote for. We're telling you, look objectively, embrace the truth, look at the trajectory of this country right now. Tom, I don't want to continue to belabor this issue with Christopher Wray, but if I listen to him say any more times that the southern border of the United States is a threat to national security, I'm going to pull my hair out, although I got a few I can afford. I want to bump into the northern border, Tom. If the southern border of the United States with illegal immigrants coming across, right, is a threat to our national security and potentially the introduction of a controlled substance which kills our people, isn't the northern border potentially the same thing, Tom?
Sure. Yes, it is.
And in fact, we
and
both
we
know,
have
in
bad
fact,
things
that
being smuggled into the U.S. across the northern border. For example, when I ran the organized crime program of the FBI, we had a number of investigations involving Chinese triads who were importing Asian white heroin into Canada. They would move it from the west coast of Canada to the east coast of Canada and then down across our northern border into the United States. We had many cases like that.
and that's only one instance. And so let me just give you a little history on Tom.
Pattern of racketeering on their part, continuing trafficking, continuing bringing contraband across the border. So yeah, we've had both borders be a challenge in the past, and they definitely are right now.
And guys, so you understand Tom's background, which is why he's so capable of speaking literally to this conversation. Tom oversaw, on behalf of the FBI and our nation, the entire international operation of the FBI. He ran the organized crime unit. He's been so many places in the FBI protecting this country. I've lost track, to be honest, and I don't mean to be comedic about it. I mean,
about 100 countries, Lou, because I was also on the executive board of Interpol.
So, guys, you understand when you hear him speak, he's telling you something that you need to listen to. Tom, let's bump into this little discussion about those who violate their visas. In other words, prior to this administration, the largest number of individuals that violated our immigration laws were those who overstayed our visas. Tom, do they give us that number any longer? Do you know?
I don't know if they do, but on the other hand, visa overstays are not the biggest threat to this country because when they come in, they're giving some information, where they're coming from, where they're going to, their identity. There is a certain amount of vetting going on to get a visa to come in. So when they come in and stay too long, well, we know who they are. We know where theoretically they are, but it's how many millions of people that have crossed our borders illegally during the Biden administration, where we have no clue who they are, where they came from, or any other method of being able to vet them. And then in the past and to the present, you're not going to be able to vet people coming into this country if they're coming in from hostile countries that we don't have a relationship to share information, or those countries are failed states. They don't have an intelligence service that tracks, who was a terrorist or who isn't, or law enforcement or who's a fugitive. So in that case, we're at the mercy of everybody. Come on in. And that's what our administration is not differentiated. They basically have said to the world, Joe Biden and, of course, our border czar, Kamala Harris, come on in. You're all welcome. In fact, when you get here, we'll give you a cell phone. We'll give you cash. We'll give you more than, the average person that's on Social Security that's getting a maximum benefit, that's about $1,400 a month. For these people coming in, they're making more than that. Migrants that are here illegally are getting a bigger amount than American qualified Social Security receivers. So yeah, you have a lot of issues with the border. And then you have Mayorkas and, and Biden, the whole administration, continue to lie. Oh, the borders are secure. That's in our head that they're not secure. 20 million people coming across the border unchecked. Oh, that's real secure. Yeah.
Guys, and before Tom came on air, I was speaking to this briefly about this border, and Tom has just elaborated. I want you to know something. Tom and I really don't discuss the border that much off camera because it kind of is self-evident. You've just heard me say many of the same things that Tom said. What really should insult you is the fact that on numerous occasions, Mayorkas, your alleged Homeland Security head, has told you the border's secure. Kamala Harris has done the same thing, telling you the border's secure. I keep telling you, that's how little they think of us, that they just look you in the eye and they bold-faced lie to you. The question I ask you is, who do you think knows more about the border or about securing this country? Mayorkas, Kamala Harris, or Tom Fuentes? And trust me, guys, it's Tom. Because Tom isn't attached to a political mechanism. There's a level of distrust that's emanating in this country from this political entity called Democrats that is almost getting to the point where it's immeasurable. I listen to them all yap up and down about, Donald Trump challenging the 2020 election results. if you don't want us to be suspect of your dishonesty, why don't you stop treating Bernie Sanders a little differently, who, by the way, during his primary debate with Hillary Clinton on CNN, twice gave Hillary Clinton the questions in advance, which cost Donna Brazile her job. Now, most recently, for everyone that's standing here, bold-faced lying to you about the cognitive state of the president, all of a sudden, through divine intervention, they realized he's losing it. It wasn't just the last debate with Donald Trump. This has been evidenced over the past couple of years. They intentionally misled you, not just the Republicans, their own constituents, and the people that trusted them and donated hundreds of millions of dollars to the Biden-Harris campaign. So we have dishonesty, deceit, and bold-faced lies to you. And guys, I have to be candid with you. If the Republicans were doing this, I'd say the same thing. I don't have any particular love for Republicans more than Democrats. I like people whose hearts are in the right place, who care about our kids, who care about the future of this country. This is where we are right now. Guys, we're going to take a quick break. I'm going to come back. We're going to continue this conversation with Tom. This is Operation Truth. You can reach us at operationtruthofficial.com. Please feel free to comment and communicate. Challenge us. We want you to challenge us. I am not here to spoon feed you, nor is Tom. We're giving you food for thought. We're trying to give you a truthful assessment of the circumstances under which you live today and the future impact or outcome. When we get back, we're going to talk about the affluent who have the luxury of being liberal. We're going to be right back. Operation Truth. Stay with us, guys.
Thank you for tuning in to Operation Truth. We are just taking a moment to remind you to go follow us at Operation Truth Official on TikTok. You can also find us at Operation Truth Official on Facebook and Instagram. Be a part of this conversation and join the operation.
We're back, and as always with me is my co-host, Tom Fuentes. When we led you into a break, we were just speaking in generality about why we distrust the Democrats and a propensity to cheat and why we suspect that they might. Tom, I'd like to hear your perspective or your point of view on this yourself.
Well, first of all, the Democrats and anybody else that dealt with Joe Biden knew that he was mentally deficient going back to the beginning of his administration. It's gotten steadily worse, but he certainly had cognitive deficiencies all along. And anybody, the White House staff, people that worked close to him, you have Kamala Harris saying she was with him every day in the White House, and she didn't see it. None of them saw any issue with Joe Biden being a candidate for president, for re-election to president in the 2024 campaign. All of a sudden, they realize he is so far down in the polls, his approval rating is so low that all of the political experts are saying no one has ever won re-election with that low of approval ratings. He can't win. He can't beat Trump. And everything they had done against Trump only helped Trump's ratings go higher, from prosecutions to trying to keep him off ballots to all the different things that they did backfired. So now they decided that if Biden can't beat Trump, we need a new candidate. So they're removing Biden and having this palace coup to get rid of him was not because he's mentally deficient. They could care less if he's competent. As long as he says yes to the things they want passed or the executive orders they want issued, he's great. He's a great president. But suddenly they realize he can't win. That was the issue. And so they decide that the best thing to do is let the country see what they've already been seeing, how deficient he is, how troubled he is. So they set up this debate. And in fact, the Biden administration set the rules. They picked CNN, therefore Jake Tapper and Dana Bash to be the moderators. Everything was set up to cause Biden to fail. And he did. And so when he fails really badly in front of the whole nation, now they have the mechanism, they have the excuse they need. Oh, he's mentally deficient. We can't have him, be our standard bearer, even though 14 million Democrats in the primary voted for Biden in the last couple of months. No, we've got to find a new candidate that can beat Trump. And nothing to do with, it doesn't matter if Biden can put two syllables together or not. If he can beat Trump, he's in. If he can't, he's out. And that's what led to the palace coup, set him up to look bad in front of the whole American public. And then you can claim, oh, we're saving the country from someone who's mentally deficient and can't do the job and should pull out of the race. And that's what leads to that. It has nothing to do with the good of the country or the good of the Democrat. It only has to do with Trump was going to beat him, and they can't have that. They'll put Donald Duck at the top of their ticket if they thought he'd be competitive with Trump.
You know, guys, let me just point something out to you. We didn't have either convention. We had no nominated presidential candidates, right? The RNC was latter part of June. DNC's August 19th. When did we start having debates between people that weren't presidential candidates?
Just this year, Lou. It's always been done in the past after both conventions, and you had two official nominees for president and vice president from each party. But they didn't want to wait that long. They wanted to undo Biden long before their August convention. That's exactly what they did.
And guys, so we're clear, you know, Tom and I are just kind of spitballing right now, but you have to follow the bouncing ball. You know, it looks like, I'm just throwing this out there for consideration. I'm not telling you it's fact. It looks like they set him up to create a larger window of time for them to rebound. But I do want to say one thing, because I listened to Tom rattle off the name of a lot of people in his environment that should have picked up on his loss of cognitive skills. What about Jill Biden? You live with this man every day. You sleep with this guy. I mean, how dishonest are you that you wouldn't even protect this man? I don't get any of this. But then again, I want to go back into something that I just want to gloss over with you. This is the same family that after his son fathered a child with London Roberts, they've denied basically the existence of this 4-year little girl in Arkansas. This is about the family's character. So it's really not a departure of how depraved they are in their thinking. If you deny a child, you deceive the public. And that's a little bit about what we went on. But if you listen to what Tom just said, it sounds like they could have set him up for this, quite candidly. And I'll tell you something else that piggybacked that. Because, you know, I listen to all the people in the entertainment industry, many of whom I've dealt with. George Clooney, for example. George Clooney is not attached to the hip with Joe Biden. It's Barack Obama, just so we're clear. And Clooney came out after that and made a comment and said, the night of the big fundraiser that was star-studded attendance like Julia Roberts and himself and all these other high rollers from the entertainment industry, that by favor, just so we're clear, ladies and gentlemen, the only reason Obama bumps into George Clooney is because of money and favor. That's it. They both feed off each other. Otherwise, it'd be like talking to me. Barack Obama wants nothing to do with me. I can't do anything for him. But listen to what Clooney says. This is irrefutable. The same Joe Biden you saw in that debate, we saw that night. And that was his excuse for telling him to step out of the race. You know, guys, this is getting, I hate to say it, like a conspiracy in the country. And I'm alarmed because this is the way Rome ran. We're like living in an accelerated Roman Empire. But listen to the comments Tom and I are both making here. They're consistent. If you look at them objectively and you connect the dots, they add up. Why are we having a debate in June with two guys that are not presidential candidates? Now, it begs another question that Tom probably will come in on. Kamala is running her gums about debating Donald Trump. Well, I hate to break it to you, but you're not nominated. So why is he going to waste his time and energy debating with someone that may not be the presidential candidate? And guys, I have to tell you, there's trouble in paradise with the Democrats. It's irrefutable. If you look at this young lady's track record, the things she has said through a window of time, it's alarming. And all of a sudden we're recanting it. It doesn't work that way, guys. I opened the show up reminding everybody about J.D. Vance speaking about women that don't have children, cat women. Words hurt. Words stick with you. Think about what they translate to before you say them. Well, that applies to her as well. Guys, listen to what she's had to say. Tom, I'm sure you've been tracking this. Why is Trump going to debate someone that may not be the Democrat candidate? We don't know what's going to happen in that convention. There are a lot of people whose underwear are in a bunch over her being the potentially the presidential candidate for the Democrats. This is a person that finished less than 2% in polling during the primaries. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom?
Yeah, well, you had some Democrats having their media buddies put out that Trump was going to be afraid to debate her. He won't debate her. She'll be, the presumptive nominee, will become the nominee of the Democrats, and Trump will be afraid of her. And I think Trump's basically saying, bring them on. Bring anybody on. I'm ready. I don't care who you put in front of me. I'll debate them. So I think that that's more of what, Trump's intention was, just to kill the narrative that he might be afraid to go against her or some other candidate on the Democratic side. I think watching Trump, you pretty much realize not afraid of any of them. And he would just soon debate any or all of them, even at the same time, to talk about their policies. And the Republicans, Trump, Vance, the others, they don't have to debate the person, which there's plenty there to do when it comes to Kamala Harris, but the policies. She's got Joe Biden's policies wrapped around her neck for 3.5 years. Go after that. What did she do to stop that?
Tom, it's the whole Democrat Party have his policies. In fact, the interesting part about Joe Biden, and I don't want to beat the guy up because I don't think it bears any fruit, but this was a conservative Democrat. When he ran in the primaries, right, everybody perceived Joe Biden as Uncle Joe. Everybody liked him. There was a likable quality to this guy. If anybody could defeat the Antichrist, Donald Trump, it was Joe Biden. Believe me, they have some talented people that are in the Democrat Party. Don't be mistaken here. Please trust me. There are some open-minded individuals who are talented there. You may not be aligned with their political views in every instance, but please trust me. Keep an open mind. But they looked at him as being harmless. Look at this condition of this country, guys. Every time you turn and you bump into something, we're in a catastrophe. Before Tom came on air, I was mentioning this whole thing about the condition of the economy and how much better we're doing. Look at how much good he did. All the bills. What bills passed? Help me. I don't talk to a person in my life day to day that experienced any of the positive outcome of this administration. We're all financially strangled, compounded by the fact that our country's in grave peril. Don't listen to me. Don't listen to a former assistant director of the FBI or any number of them like Chris Schwecker or Kevin Brock, God rest his soul, left us, another exceptional FBI leader. Listen to the people in the news cycle. Listen to Kamala Harris. Listen to Mayorkas. You have a secure border. Guys, this is an imminent threat. Tom, there's so much to talk about, Tom. I can't even quantify it at this point. I want to talk to you about the Ukraine, the fact that we're giving them F-16s, which is a form of escalation with Putin. Now we're going to arm Zelensky, who, by the way, guys, let me be clear about something. The reason Donald Trump is probably going to be able to end that war is for one simple reason. Zelensky without us can't fight. Putin, if you could distract him from fighting to make money, will probably make some concessions and withdraw, I would say, from a considerable percentage of what he has taken. And there is a compromise. So Mr. Zelensky can sit there and shoot his mouth off all he wants, which I resent because he does it because we're fighting that war for him. Don't be mistaken. You take our munitions, our armament, our money, whatever it is we're supplying them. And Tom, you can comment on this in 1 second, please, sir. And he's got nothing there. He wouldn't last 15 more minutes. Am I right, Tom?
Yeah, that's true. But what Zelensky has in his pocket is evidence against Joe Biden and the Biden crime family of taking millions of dollars from the Ukraine, from a couple of other countries in that region, from the ex-wife of the Moscow mayor in Russia, a couple $1 million there, not to mention the tens of millions of dollars that are documented that the Bidens got from China. But in any event, specific to Ukraine, Zelensky can provide the evidence that it would put Biden in prison, how much they've taken, how much corruption, how much they've paid the Biden family, the receipts, the bank records, all of that stuff. So that's why for 2+ years now, anytime Zelensky says, send more money, send more equipment, send more military hardware, Biden and his cronies jump to do that and keep Zelensky happy so he won't rat them out with how much corruption they've had with Ukraine.
Let me tell you something ironic with this discussion also. We're watching Israel now fight on a second front with Hezbollah, right? They for whatever reason, thought it was a good idea to bomb a schoolyard or whatever the hell they bombed, which killed a number of children, and subsequently Israel has retaliated. Netanyahu was just here, and one of the things he cited was the fact that we're holding up support for him. Why? I know this is a political, hot potato in the country, especially with the million Muslims we have in the country that are now steering the direction of the country. And guys, I hate to break this to everybody's heart. I'm not anti anyone, but there's a lack of compatibility with Islam and Western civilization. I want to say this as I've said it before. Everyone is welcome here. But when you start to find out that your values, your mores, your customs bump into ours in a negative way, and it doesn't seem to be compatibility, you have two choices. You can yield or you can leave. I'm not here to tell anybody to leave. I'd like everybody to live here happily and in peace. That's my brain. It's very simplistic in thinking. But back to Israel for a second. If there's anyone we should be supporting, it's the Israelis. We're funding $174 billion in assets, money, etc., to the Ukraine. We turn our backs on Israel for all intents and purposes, give them everything that they need to make their point. Oh, by the way, guys, did I mention we have homeless not being taken care of, our elderly, our veterans, our children? Pick someone, and we're funding the rest of the planet. Tom, this whole thing with the Ukraine, and I want to be clear, I don't want to speak for Tom, but I suspect he's of the same mindset I am. We're not talking about abandoning the Ukraine. What we're talking about is doing it proportionately. Now, at the beginning of the show, before Tom came on, I mentioned the fact that NATO is now going to give $42 billion in aid to the Ukraine. Guys, it sounds like if the other European nations in NATO, of which the Ukraine is not one, and the United States doesn't fund this war, there's no war. And I'm hearing all the rhetoric, the scare tactic. Well, once he gets to Ukraine, he's going to go to Poland, or that's where he's going to bump into a wall because of Article 5 in the NATO treaty. We will be engaged, and because we will be bound. We are not bound to this war, except by the way that Tom pointed out. There might be a little something going on in the backstory here as to why we're so heavily married to Zelensky in the Ukraine. And guys, let me say something else to you. When Joe Biden was the vice president of the United States, somehow he saw fit, he thought it would be okay for his son to become involved with a country that is so riddled with corruption we can't keep track of it, not to mention a company called Burisma. He saw it like, yeah, son, this is a good idea. Get involved over there. Not to mention Russia or China, these convoluted, inexplicable relationships he's had with money flowing in and out. Guys, this is your country. It's about honor, integrity. It's about trustworthiness. Words that Tom and I cut our teeth on. And I suspect men like Kevin Brock and Chris Schwecker and many, many other men have. I mean, I don't know what to say. If there's one thing people can do with me is they trust me. I'll tell you something interesting about the word trust. It comes from truth. I've told the truth so often, it's been to my detriment because I do know we don't like the truth. Some of the people, if they're listening to this, don't like what we're saying right now. But I keep telling you, step away from the politics. Tom just pointed it out. He used the term policy. Look at the policy of the Democrats. How they got there, I don't know. This certainly isn't Clinton policies. Certainly isn't Kennedy policies or Tip O'Neill's.
No, Lou,
and
it's Marxist policies that have taken over the Democratic Party, the Democratic elite. It's strictly Marxism, not just socialism or they're progressive or any of that. No, they're trying to use Marxist tactics to take over the country. And that's clearly evident to many, many scholars that that's what's been going on.
We're going to talk about something that's popped up that I find incredibly amusing, and that's the president suggesting we impose term limits on the Supreme Court justices, but I didn't hear any conversation about Congress, a House of Representatives, or the Senate, our Congress. Why is that, folks? I mean, if you follow the logic behind a lifetime appointment, it's so that you can't be leveraged, influenced by having to be reelected or whatever the case may be. Because between you, me, and a lamppost, just in case you haven't followed the bouncing ball, the only time you hear from people you vote for is during the election cycle. Otherwise, they don't even know you're alive half the time. That's the truth. When it's time for them to be considered for, extending their office, they're your best friend. And then after they get elected, they forget you, don't hear from them again. This happens to be the truth attached to the discussion. But I find it highly entertaining, the fact that the president would suggest a term limit, 18 years, for Supreme Court justices, but none for your U.S. senators or your U.S. House of Representatives members, that you're allowed to be sitting in the Senate at 92 years old, which happens to be a fact. We have a law that says you cannot be sworn in before your 35th birthday as the president. Why don't we have a law that says you can't be sworn in after your 72nd birthday? In other words, guys, I'll give you from 72 to 80, and then at some point you got to pass the torch and maybe act as a consultant or a mentor. I think that's a reasonable expectation. Let me entertain you with something else. You hear Tom Fuentes. I'm not going to tell you how old Tom is, but Tom, they got their pound of flesh. Forced out of the FBI, correct me if I'm wrong, Tom, at 57, I believe it is.
Yeah, that's mandatory retirement. Mandatory retirement, not just for FBI agents, DEA agents, U.S. Marshals, ATF. If you're in the category of being a sworn law enforcement officer, carrying a gun, investigating crimes against the United States, when you turn 57, the last day of that month, it's the end of your time in the organization, whether it's FBI, Marshals, DEA, whoever. So that's what happened to me. I hit mandatory retirement November 2008 when I hit 57 years old.
Hear what he just said, ladies and gentlemen? 57 years old. Now, I've known Tom well over 10 years, and if there's anybody should be running the FBI, it's this man, along with probably some other guys that are of his generation. He has 10 times more to contribute to the betterment of this country than a lot of people in office by educational background and life experience and his career in the FBI. 57 years old. A New York State trooper, 58 years old. A New York City police officer, you hit your 63rd birthday, that's your last day. And that includes like their what they call their command staff, chiefs, the chief of department, the only 4-star, chief of detectives, 3-star chief, SOD, special operations, 3-star chief, all the brain power. But you can be in office at 85 and 90 years old. And we're not saying there aren't individuals at that age that can't contribute. But what I'm saying to you is Father Time catches far more of us than it doesn't when you start getting up into those years. And more of those people at 90 are an anomaly who have their brains still working functionally. Guys, listen, aging, the truth is that word truth that we hate. The truth attached to aging is pretty brutal. It's pretty harsh. I don't know how many people had a lot of physicality in their life. I had an enormous amount in my younger years in particular. When you have to walk away from that and you start to realize your limitation imposed by aging, it can give you pause for thinking. I can tell you that much. I've never perceived myself from a physical standpoint. It's always been my brain. It's just how I related to everything. But listen to Tom without giving up his age, what he's able to contribute, and he can't do anything. Can't be involved in the FBI as an advisor. Or in New York City, for example, if you're aged out at 63, they can bring you back as a deputy commissioner, right? They have these positions that are not age restricted. Why doesn't that exist here? Just a question, guys. There's a load of questions to ask about this thing, but the bottom line is we do need, perhaps, just for the record, I'm just throwing this out for consideration now, food for thought. Maybe when a Supreme Court justice hits 90, maybe, they have to have mandatory retirement. I mean, look what they did with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I mean, basically died holding this office, and she was barely breathing, for God's sakes. And that's I'm not saying anything to disparage her, because I happen to admire this woman, independent of our political opposition on certain issues. But guys, we have to start to become part of the solution, not the goddamn problem. And that's what we've evolved into today. You know, Tom, I want to talk to you again. I want to go back into Israel for a moment because we're watching this escalate.
Finish the Supreme Court appointment system. This was heavily debated by the founding fathers, and they basically, on purpose, wanted the Supreme Court justices to have a lifetime appointment. They didn't want them getting the job and then tailoring their decisions for the best things that would help them in their next job after retirement. You know, like you see with generals in the military and other people, they're trying to get their ducks in a row for lucrative post-retirement jobs. So James Madison and the other authors of the Federalist Papers wrote that Supreme Court justices, it needs to be a lifetime appointment, not subject to politics, not subject to having to run for re-election or look at their post-retirement job. Now, one thing the Supreme Court did not say is that we have to have 9 judges on the Supreme Court. All they said that in many of the decisions that they're going to make, the decision would have to have a majority of the justices. So in the last whatever number of years since we've had 9, to have a majority opinion rule, the decision would have to be at least 5-4, 6-3, 9-0, but then that decision would stand. So that's why it wasn't an oversight on the founding fathers. They deliberately did this to take the politics out of it. Now, the one way politics can be introduced, and Franklin Roosevelt tried this, and now you've had Biden talking about this, is the so-called packing the court. So if right now 9 judges, and they look at it like basically it's leaning a little bit to be a conservative court. So if they expanded the number from 9 to, let's say, 25, then that means the current president would get to pick, you know, all the rest to fill it out to 25. So they would be theoretically very favorable to the party in power that puts them on the court. So it failed with Roosevelt, and I don't think Biden has enough time to initiate, you know, the change in the law to pack the court, basically. Then the other things that they want, but it's politically motivated. It's not, oh, they'd be much more efficient if we had a younger court, or if we had, you know, term limits on the court. That's why they don't do it.
Well, guys, and what you heard, Tom, just, you know, I from time to time, I remind everyone, among other things, Tom is an historian, and we're going to, not to just, this is just something I want to put in your brain. We're going to go back and start to readdress the Kennedy assassination, because I think it's important to readdress that historical episode in this country, how it defined us going forward. But, you know, guys, so we're clear about this. So right now, the Democrats don't have their way, so we're going to start to impose laws and limits, and we're going to pack the court. So my question is, what happens when the Republicans get back in power? Do they then pack the court again? I mean, you see, guys, this is ridiculous. And I want to say one thing to you. Conservative people are more inclined to protect you than liberal people. And that's just a damn fact. You know, I love the affluent. They're allowed to be liberal because they live in gated communities, right? If they travel and they want to travel safely, they can hire people like myself or even Tom, right? We'll escort you. I own a private security group, part of my function. They don't really bump into life the way the average American does. You know, you guys have to understand what's going on here. I'm not anti-liberal, by the way. I happen to have a very liberal tinge to me. Maybe I wouldn't even agree with a lot of what Tom feels, but me, I don't care who you sleep with. I really don't want to hear about it. It's your business. Guard your privacy. I don't have any ill will towards transgender people. I'm not going to quantify them or diagnose them. I want to make a lane for everyone, a voice to everyone, which is how the country used to be under the Kennedy administration. It was a voice to everyone. By the way, the other gentleman was Ronald Reagan. For those of you that didn't follow this man's presidential term, when he was elected, he won 44 states of the 50. On re-election, he won 49. It's about being a voice for everyone. The problem today, guys, is the rhetoric has changed, and we're not going to start talking about the media today. We're going to talk about the media hot and heavy the next time, because it's really the root of your problem. But Tom, if you are concluded on your thoughts regarding the Supreme Court, I want to take you into this, what's going on with Israel right now and Hezbollah, and where we have potential escalation. So I'll give you the final word on the Supreme Court, or the issues of wanting to change how we manage the Supreme Court justices.
The only final thought on the Supreme Court would be, if they packed it, let's say today they increase the number of judges to 15 or 20, whatever. By the time they get all of that in, the one person that's going to benefit from that and have more Supreme Court picks is the next president. So if Donald Trump gets elected in November and sworn in January, and they now have a Supreme Court with, let's say, 20 judges, that means that they're going to be 11 short. So they're going to have to nominate 11 judges, and then the Judiciary Committee will hold hearings, and then the whole Senate can vote to confirm. So theoretically, this will boomerang on the Democrats. If they actually pull this, they're not going to let, even though Biden has said this out loud, the more knowledgeable Democrats behind the scenes are going, wait a minute, we're not going to do that. That's going to benefit probably Trump. Can't have that. So that's, I think an idle threat, basically, with Biden spouting off about packing the court.
I just think, once again, Tom, the issue really is the rhetoric is wrong, because it stirs up the country. We start to feed an agenda. It appears to be half the country. The one thing about people who are on the more liberal side, please understand something. In my world, there's nothing more important than your safety. I'll tell you something interesting. I worked for a lot of people. Some were billionaires. I've never seen a Brinks truck follow a hearse. I can tell you that for sure. You have to have peace in your life and some calm. And I know many of you think you're going to buy your way out of this because you're worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I know who my clients are. I know the people I work for. I know under which conditions you live, which is a complete departure from 99% of America. You're the 1%, as they refer to it. But guys, let me tell you something. If this goes to hell in a handbasket here, and it can, it's going to tap everybody. That's just the reality of it. Tom, I do want to take you into this discussion with Israel, because I mentioned earlier in the podcast before you came on, excuse me, that Hezbollah apparently bombed a schoolyard or such and killed 12 Israeli citizens, many of whom I understand were children. Israel has since retaliated, as we know they would. Guys, so we're clear about something with Israel. If there's any confusion in your mind about what will happen when you poke that bear, please let me clear it up. They're coming after you. They don't care about what the United States says, France, Germany, England, Australia, the Russians, the Chinese, the Iranian. They don't care. They're going to do what they know they need to do to preserve their country. Clean or dirty, right, wrong, or indifferent. So let us just get the groundwork set up for Israel so you understand the level of resolve and commitment they have to their preservation. But Tom, we're watching this escalate now, correct me if I'm wrong, with this retaliation against Lebanon. Am I correct, Tom, in that? Am I correct? They retaliated against Lebanon. They killed an individual that I understand was part of the mechanism to, I guess, orchestrate a ceasefire and release some more hostages. It's quite interesting the way that they tapped into this guy. But does it concern you at all, Tom, what's going on over there as far as escalation?
Well, certainly, because, and then we don't know how accurate the reporting is that we're hearing about Israel, who did what to who, and all that kind of stuff. What we can do, look, and you talked about history. In 2006, Israel decided to go after Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, and they got their behinds handed to them and left. Did not win that war, were not successful against Hezbollah, and they went back home, to cross our southern border with Lebanon back into Israel. So, the question is Israel in a position where they could even defeat Hezbollah if they go to full-scale war with them? I don't know, but that's the history. The last time they did it, they lost. Maybe they could do it today, maybe not.
I would say to you, Tom, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is my opinion, Israel, like the Ukraine without us, doesn't have the teeth, to be honest with you. I mean, Israel is in a quagmire for a number of reasons, part of which is geographical positioning. The number of adversarial countries in proximity of them.
Yeah, they may not have the teeth even with us. What can we do for them over there? Ground troops? More artillery that we're supposedly out of? Air support from our planes and the aircraft carriers nearby and all of that. Everything we have in the Middle East is vulnerable, as much as Israel's vulnerable. So there's a lot to be talked about if Israel decides to do a full court invasion to go after Hezbollah. They may not succeed, and it could be the demise of Israel itself.
And that's something I mentioned before about the preservation of Israel. It was mentioned the other day that, Netanyahu has not asked for a single boot on the ground there. I do know we have operatives working in the Middle East right now because we have hostages being held by Hamas, which the media just, I guess, conveniently glosses over. I keep reminding you about the media and selective reporting. We don't focus enough on the fact that they're holding United States citizens as hostages in Gaza, period. And I do know that we have operatives there who are seeking to liberate them. But in a more formal sense, Netanyahu has not asked for a single boot on the ground. And my take on this thing is, if this continues to escalate, it might require the United States level of involvement in order for them to be preserved, because the same concern Tom expressed.
And that's why he has not needed to ask for it, because his assumption is if they get into a major battle with Hezbollah, who's backed by Iran and all of that, we'll enter anyway. The U.S. will come to the rescue either way. So why even ask it? Why even put that on the table today when they know that's what's going to happen? We're going to come in, ground troops, aerial support, whatever it takes, and that'll be a given.
And what's interesting about this also, Tom, and this is just one remedy, because there's no secret that countries like Saudi Arabia and Egypt and some of the other more moderate Middle Eastern countries, they're not big fans of Hamas or Hezbollah. What would be helpful is if they could start to see the big picture here and realize that we don't need another major conflict in the Middle East directed towards Iran or anyone for that matter, and maybe become part of this solution and leveraging Iran into a better position of behavior. Although I don't want to get into the whole history because our time's up with this show. But when we come back the next time, we're going to talk about how we funded Iran under the Obama and Biden administration to put them in such a position that they're in right now. In fact, you know what? Let's talk about that right now, Tom. And then we're going to have to go, guys, because we're running out of time. But Tom, you and I both know the Obama administration and the Biden administration poured hundreds of millions of dollars. Am I correct? Into their coffers, which has enabled them to.
At the end of the Trump administration, they were broke. Everybody talked about how deficient in money. They were not going to be able to support the terror groups that they support, whether it's Hamas or Hezbollah or the Houthis in Yemen, any of that. And then Biden gets in and all of a sudden, removes the sanctions so they can sell their oil and other countries can buy it, and frees up a couple $100 million for Iran to use to strengthen themselves, their economy, their support of terrorism, you name it. So, that's what happened. That's what happened when one administration was over and the new administration that we currently have came in and said, "Oh, we don't need these penalties or sanctions on Iran. Let's be nice to them." Well, we are.
Well, guys, we're going to close for today. This has been Operation Truth. You can reach us at operationtruthofficial.com. As you can tell, we could just talk about this ad infinitum, forever. And there's really a lot to talk about, a lot of things to be concerned about today, because as I keep telling everybody, we're robbing our children in this country of its future. The reality of the situation is it looks like in some instances there will not be a happy ending. We have to start to reach out to one another, both domestically and abroad, and start to see if we can pool our best minds to try to fix some of these problems that are staring us in the face. thing I want to say in closing today, and I think Tom will support this. When you start thinking about voting for a political entity, I'm going to leave it right there. Stop looking about who's representing that entity. Look, I know why Donald Trump has so much disdain directed towards him. I got the memo. You know, there are lessons in life. One of them says, it's not what you say, but how you say it. Something he doesn't understand. I can't explain to you why. I do not understand this policy or practice of saying things that are personally demeaning or harmful towards an individual. You have the right policies in place. Keep it simple, stupid. Just speak to the policies, speak to the political differences, speak to the trajectory of the country based on what we're living today, what we lived under your 4 years, and what you're going to bring us to in the future. You know, what really bothers me is that people have so much personal disdain for him that they're prepared to put the safety and the future of our children at risk. And I find no comfort in saying this to you, but the Democrats have lost their way. That's all there is to it. These are not Bill Clinton Democrats, I can tell you that. And the final thing I say to you today, because I'm so tired of listening about Barack Obama, the golden boy, the guy with the silver tongue, okay? You're living him redefining America today. You're living his embracing the progressive movement. I don't know if you're smart enough to know when to come in from the rain. Look at the condition of your major cities, your borders, your foreign policies. This whole transition to electricity, which has just become one big, I don't even know how to quantify it in terminology. It's like a folly. Guys, these lithium batteries, to make it simple, you charge them through steam turbines. Just stay with me for a moment. Fueled by fossil fuel, by the way, that you're trying to eliminate. And nuclear energy, which is a word nobody wants to talk about, although Elon Musk and Gates are starting to brush up against it. I spoke to you guys years ago about it. It's that word we're afraid of. But it's one deception after the other. And I'm not saying the Republicans don't do it, but not to the proportion of the epic scale that the Democrats do. This is shameful. This is your country. I don't care about the Republicans or the Democrats. I care about the truth. I care about the preservation of the future of our children in this country. That's all I care about. And I'm prepared to support anybody that will further that. I am tired of talking to people about the border issue. And when you do, they go, oh, but Donald Trump, but Donald Trump, but Donald Trump. Please stop that bullshit with me. Please. I talked to you about this lie about gun control. Donald Trump and Donald Trump. Stop talking about this man and start to look about the policies of governing that the conservative element have that the liberals don't. This is not an anything goes society. It's not going to work. It's not working in your major cities. Just look at the condition of them. Look at the condition of your borders. The fact that we remind you on a weekly basis of 15 million plus people in this country unvetted, we know nothing about for a myriad of reasons. Look at your foreign policies. We're involved in two proxy wars now. This is your country, guys. Put your political lens down and your personal likes and dislikes and look about the agenda of each of these political entities in which is going to ensure the future of your children. Keep it simple. Thank you for joining us today. This has been Operation Truth. Tom, I always thank you for being on board with me. In the future, guys, we're going to go back to discussions about the Kennedy assassination, which has a very keen relevance and attachment as to why we're living today what we are and the future of the country. And it's going to talk about the loss of innocence in the military-industrial complex and its impact. Thank you for joining us. This has been Lou Palumbo, Tom Fuentes, Operation Truth. See you next time.